Fourth Avenue Guitar's approach to the Great Guitar Build-Off just seems to have become, let's find out how many holes I can drill in something. If you're not bleeding at the end, you haven't worked hard enough. That's my motto. Well, I suppose I should get some work done on the body. I've got my big mahogany blank cut out here, and I need to chamber the hell out of it. All the chambers are now cut out, mostly, probably. I'll change the design at some point, I usually do. I need to cut the body down to the template. I could just use the router, but because they're quite thin, I don't want any tear out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this with my bobbin sander as close to the template as I dare. As close as I can. And then I'm going to run it over the router table. I really want one of those funky kind of oscillating belt sanders that everybody's playing with. I think that's my next big purchase. But I'll go into this one. What I now need to do is slightly modify my internal block, because I want to reduce as much weight as possible in this, since I'm not laminating it, and I'm also going to use relatively heavy copper for the top. So we've got a 19th fret join, puts us there, which means that if I measure the 12th fret on here, and find a pencil because I keep putting it down somewhere. Will do. My bridge should sit around here-ish. Wait, 5 3/4, yeah. My bridge should sit there. So if I measure a couple of inches behind that, that gives me a bit of leeway. Call it 2 inches. I'm going to reduce the thickness of this block so that it's more just a support bar rather than a block. It's a whole block. So I'm just going to measure that in, and then I'm going to cut it out and give it a quick sand just to get it nice and level. favourite radius to use for everything is the inside of a roll of masking tape. I don't know what radius it is, but it's always handy and I can always draw around it. Well, that's reduced the weight quite a bit. To reduce weight even more and create a bit more airspace inside, what I'm actually going to do is take this over to the router table again, and using this bit, I'm going to cut inside these walls to just thin them out a bit in the middle. So we'll leave a good chunk at the top and bottom, or the top and the back, and we'll have a nice hollow in the middle. So if I set this in the router table with the bearing running along the edge, I can use progressively smaller bearings on this to dig out just as much as I need, and I can get the wall down as thin as I like. The ribs of the body are now kind of hollowed out a bit, so I've undercut the entire side around here and left a lip kind of sat top and bottom to take the top and back of the guitar. Because it's going to be, we'll say a carved top, that's kind of the right term for a shaped top, I'm going to need a block on the top and the back which kind of follows the contours for the top and back to attach to, because I don't want them to just resonate freely, because the way I'm going to build it, it would feed back quite a lot if I did that. And I'm really loud. I want to be able to rock out and not have a horrible squealing sound constantly. So to do that, I need to do a block top and back. So obviously I need to trim around where the block changes shape down here, otherwise I'm just going to have this kind of free floating, which could work, but it's not what I want at the moment. I like to have as much extra airspace as possible inside the guitar. Also it means that I can reduce weight and I've got less to carve, so it's laziness really, but it works. I need to plane the neck angle and do some shaping, because it's going to follow the contour of the top. The first thing is the neck angle, which to measure I need a 90-degree line. That will be at the 19th fret. So from there I can measure where the bridge is going to be. Which, if I measure from the 12th fret, half of a 24 3/4 inch scale length, which takes me to 12 and some. To plane this in, we need to know what angle it's going to be. Rather than doing the maths, which you could do, I could sit and do drawings and figure it all out that way. There is a quick and easy way. Essentially, if you know how thick your fretboard's going to be, which this is currently 6mm, add a couple of millimetres onto that, so we'll call it 8. So we're going to be 8mm up for the fretboard on here. What we can do is measure the height of the bridge, which on this is 13mm, and if we take away 8 from 13, that leaves us with 5. We can put a block 5mm high on this line, because if we're ignoring the height of the fretboard there, we ignore the height of it here as well, which gives us 5mm. If I add a millimetre or two for safety, the bridge basically doesn't have to sit hard against the body, it can lift up a little bit. You can go higher, you can't go lower without a lot of routing and awkwardness. So I like to add a millimetre or two, which gives me a little bit of adjustment space. We'll have that block there, and essentially we rest the back of the plane on the block and just plane away down here. Now that I've got my angles carved in here, I need to do something about the contouring. Now, the top is going to sit flush with the edge here, in this edge, and these edges. So I'm going to recess the top of this body to set this in, but I'm also going to have to end this block probably around here so that the top can sit flush for a little bit of distance. So obviously I want to probably sand in a slight recurve in here so that I can emphasise the carve a bit more. But that obviously means that I'm going to have to kind of work on the transition from here. So there's going to be lots of cutting, carving and sanding to get this right. I think there's going to be quite a bit of shaping going on, so obviously I'll have to kind of cut in here a bit as well to get the carve in the waist just right. And up here there's going to be a lot of trial and error and just kind of figuring it out as I go along. A good way to figure out how it's working is with a straight edge, probably something a bit thinner than this ruler, but you can kind of bend it over, and if it's touching all the way across your block, then it's a safe bet that your top is going to touch it most of the way across. You can try that in all the way along. Obviously I don't have this bent up at the sides, that's why I could do with something slightly thinner, because then I can actually kind of get it to bend in a bit of a recurve and give me the shape. So I'll be doing that. I'll be using a bit of everything to do this with. So lots of chisels, files, rasps, sandpaper, the works. So I've got this block mostly shaped, we've got the contours cut in. Obviously it's going to need some tweaking when I get the top on, but that should be nice and easy because we just have to make it fit an existing shape then. Obviously this is only one. I've got to do the same again for the back. The top and back centre block are now mostly shaped. They're not completely there. Obviously I've got to get the top and the back themselves made and then just match the fit to get it perfect. What I need to do now is mark out where I'm going to recess these ribs to sit the top inside slightly, because it's going to have the mahogany ribs showing on the outside edge and the top will be inlaid, as same with the back. So I need to remove these, which is easier said than done because I've used my copper pins to hold them in place. With my centre blocks removed, I can get out my other template and attach that to the body itself, which this is going to give me a guide for where I need to route or recess for the top and the back to be inlaid. And essentially what I need to do with this is score around it with probably a scalpel very carefully, and then I'll have to find a way to actually recess inside here all the way around. Well, I almost forgot. I intend to drill a load of holes in this. I clearly never learn my lesson when I do anything. Basically, to tie in the mahogany rim and the copper top, I want to have some brass tubing that runs through the entire body. It's kind of give an interesting effect. You might see light through it. It'll look cool. But I need to drill a load of holes, which means I need to measure out a load of holes. And to get them evenly spaced, we're going to use dividers. 152 holes, and I've countersunk each one of them. The one lesson I've learned from last year is that it's a lot easier to use a 5-flute countersink bit than sit there with a Dremel and a tapered bit, whatever you call those grinding bits, and do each one individually. Set the depth stop and just keep going. It's great. What I'm doing now is I'm just using a small gouge to just chop away up to the line that I scored earlier on. So now I need to level the rest of the inside of this, bring it down just under 1.5 millimeters. So I've dug out, I think this is the predecessor to my router sled, so it just kind of ran on the body itself. I used it for kind of chambering and things. I've modified it slightly so I can fit a bigger router bit through it, and I'm going to run this on the sides of the body, and I've measured out where my router cutter is going to go, and I'm not going to take it right to the edges because that gives quite a lot of opportunity for things to go horribly wrong if I do that. But I'll take it as close as I dare, and then I'll clean the rest up with chisels. I really recommend you don't chisel towards yourself, but the way that I've got this fixed down at the moment, that's how I've got the most control. So again, don't copy me, I'm a fully qualified idiot. I will probably injure myself at some point. Well, whilst I've been doing all the other bits, I've been puzzling over how I'm going to shape the top. As I said, I'm going to be beating it out of a sheet of copper. I've got the centre blocks which I've been shaping to roughly the right shape, but obviously they're going to need to be perfect to match the shaped top. So what I've actually done here is I've got an inch thick piece of MDF. I've routed it to the shape that the top is going to be, and I've actually cut a space for the centre block to sit in. It wants a little bit of tweaking, it's quite tight at the moment, but essentially what I'm going to do is take the template, the routing jig that I've made for doing binding, and I'm going to put a groove all the way around to show me the depth that I need to go to, because obviously it's got to sit flat all the way around. And then I think I'm just going to use a combination of scrapers, rasps, gougers and a sander to get this to the shape that I want. Then once that's done, I can put the block in place, beat the copper over it, get my basic shape. I can fine tune it off here and then put it back as a reference, and then it should be a perfect fit. And then the centre block can come back out and go into the guitar. Hopefully.
I think it's a little bit more resistant.
I might go to plan B. Where's my angle grinder? So I think this is probably a good point to leave this video, because I think it's turning into a bit of a feature-length epic. Also, I was supposed to be doing the neck first. I think that's next time.